Overcoming the fear of public speaking. Have you ever felt nervous when speaking in front of a crowd? It could be a presentation in front of colleagues or simply standing up to introduce yourself. For many people, this is a common fear. Dr. Justin Moseley also feared public speaking from a young age. His first memory of this fear was in second grade when the teacher asked students to read aloud in class. He kept hoping he wouldn't be called on, but when his turn came, anxiety took over. His voice trembled, his classmates giggled, and he felt deeply embarrassed. That experience stuck with him for years, reinforcing the belief that he wasn't capable of speaking in public. In college, he was required to take a public speaking class. When he stood up to speak, his heart pounded, his voice shook, and his muscles tensed. After the speech, he was even more convinced. This isn't for me. However, over time, he realized that everyone has a message to share, and the key to overcoming fear is changing how you perceive it. The journey to overcoming the fear of public speaking. When Dr. Justin Moseley entered college, he still carried his deep fear of public speaking. In a mandatory public speaking course, he was forced to confront what he had always avoided. As he stood up to speak, the familiar childhood fear rushed back. His heart pounded, adrenaline surged, his throat went dry, and his body tensed up. Looking down at his notes, he realized his hands were trembling. As he tried to speak, he could hear the nervous tremor in his voice. A wave of heat spread through his body, and he felt as if he might pass out. Although he completed his speech, the experience only reinforced his belief that public speaking wasn't for him. For years, he continued to avoid situations that required him to present or speak in front of others. However, deep inside, he always felt that he had a message worth sharing. He longed to express his thoughts and experiences to help others. But the fear of public speaking seemed like an insurmountable barrier. After years of avoidance, he finally decided to face it. He began asking himself, what exactly am I so afraid of? And it was this shift in perspective that helped him gradually overcome his fear, opening a new path for personal growth. Recognizing the value of a personal message. A pivotal turning point in Dr. Justin Moseley's journey to overcoming his fear of public speaking was realizing that everyone has a unique message to share. He once believed he had nothing special to say. However, a mentor told him, "You are in the perfect position to help the old version of yourself." This led him to reflect on his experiences and the lessons he had learned in life. He realized that many people were facing the same challenges he had once encountered, and if he could share his experiences, he could help them navigate their struggles. From that moment on, he no longer viewed public speaking as a fear, but as an opportunity to serve others. This brought him to an important realization. Sharing a message is not about yourself, it's about those who need to hear it. In the past, every time he prepared to speak, he worried. How will they judge me? What if I say something wrong? Will they criticize my voice? But then he understood that all these thoughts were self-focused. When he shifted his perspective, he realized that his primary goal was to help his audience. Another mentor told him, fear disappears when you focus on serving. And when he began to concentrate on the value he could provide, everything changed. He was no longer consumed by the opinions of others, but instead focused on the positive impact of his message. From then on, whenever he stood before a crowd, he reminded himself, if even one person in this audience can change their life because of what I say, then it's all worth it. Turning fear into excitement. As Dr. Justin Moseley delved deeper into the nature of fear, he realized that it was simply a natural bodily response to danger. When standing in front of a crowd, his body reacted the same way it would when facing a threat. His heart raced, adrenaline surged, muscles tensed, breathing became rapid, and his hands and legs trembled. This was the fight or flight response, something humans had developed over millions of years to survive. However, through further research, he discovered something fascinating. These same physical reactions also occurred when people felt excited. When anticipating something amazing, the body exhibited the same signs. But instead of fear, it was eagerness. The only difference between fear and excitement is how we interpret those feelings. If he thought, I'm scared, I'm going to fail, his body would respond negatively. But if he changed his mindset and told himself, I'm excited, this is an opportunity to change someone's life, then his anxiety would instantly transform into motivation. Every time he stepped onto a stage, instead of letting fear control him, he reminded himself, I'm not nervous, I'm excited. This is my chance to make a difference. And as he focused on the value of his message, the fear slowly faded away. He realized that anyone can change the way they experience fear. By consciously turning it into a source of positive energy, they can use that very feeling to propel themselves forward and create a greater impact in life. The impact of sharing a message. Dr. Justin Moseley realized that if he didn't overcome his own fears, he would never have the opportunity to make a difference in other people's lives. A powerful experience proved this to him. In 2012, he delivered the biggest speech of his career to an audience of 200 people. Beforehand, he had thoroughly prepared, clearly defined his message, and transformed his fear into excitement. When he stepped onto the stage, he no longer worried about how he looked or how he would be judged. He simply focused on sharing a meaningful message. After his speech, a man approached him and said, "Thank you for what you shared. It changed my life." The man went on to explain that he had undergone 4 heart surgeries. While lying in his hospital bed, he looked at his grandson and promised himself that he would regain his health so he could watch the child grow up. Dr. Wow, Justin's words gave him the motivation he needed. Not only did he recover, but he also achieved something extraordinary. At the age of 65, he completed the Ironman triathlon, one of the most grueling physical challenges in the world. This story powerfully demonstrates the value of sharing a message. Had Dr. Justin not conquered his fear, that man might never have received the inspiration to change his life. And just as his speech impacted one person, each of us has the ability to influence someone's life simply by sharing our own story. So he encourages everyone to ask themselves, if I overcome my fear and start sharing, who could I help? What kind of impact could I make? And what legacy will I leave behind? You never know how far your influence reaches. Dr. Justin Moseley concluded his talk with a quote from B.J. Palmer. You never know how far reaching something you think, say, or do today will affect the lives of millions tomorrow. If someone had told him years ago that he would stand on a TEDx stage sharing his message, he wouldn't have believed it. But by overcoming fear and believing that what he had to share was valuable, he found himself there, inspiring hundreds, even millions of people around the world. He wants people to understand that everyone has a unique story, an important message that deserves to be heard. Yet, too many let fear hold them back. Fear of judgment, fear of failure, fear that what they have to say isn't valuable enough. The truth is, there is always someone out there who needs to hear your story, someone who needs the motivation from your experiences to change their own life. Imagine, if you overcame your fear, if you stood up and shared your story, who would be inspired? Whose life could be transformed just by hearing your words? And how far-reaching could that impact be? Dr. Justin encourages everyone not to keep their story to themselves. Share it because you never know how far your message can go, how many hearts it can touch, and how many lives it can change. He affirms, if I could overcome my fear to stand here today, then so can you. And when you dare to raise your voice, you don't just change your own life, you just might change the world. Turn fear into an opportunity to make an impact. Dr. Justin Moseley wants people to understand that everyone has an important message inside them that needs to be shared. However, many allow fear to hold them back. They worry about how others will judge them, fear making mistakes, or doubt that their words have enough value. Yet, he emphasizes that someone out there is waiting to hear what you have to say. a story that could help them overcome challenges in their own life. He asks, if you overcame your fear and started sharing your story, who could you help? What kind of impact could you make? The truth is, a single idea, a single word, or a single action can create a ripple effect far beyond what we imagine. Dr. Moseley uses his own journey as an example. If he had not overcome his fears, he would never have stood on the TEDx stage, never have inspired hundreds, even millions of people. And if others before him had remained silent out of fear, he might never have found the motivation to change his own life. So instead of letting fear control you, turn it into motivation. See sharing your message as an opportunity to leave a mark on someone's life. Someone out there needs to hear your story to find their own light in the darkness. In the end, Dr. Justin encourages everyone to step up, find strength in their own story, transform fear into excitement, and start sharing. Because when you have the courage to speak up, you don't just change your own life, you might just change the world.